This is the Jeff Jerina Show.
Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. And whether this is your first time listening to the show or you're a long-time listener, I want to let you know that I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to hear what I have to say. I really do appreciate that. Now, to make it even easier on you, so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode, all you need to do is simply subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app. Or you could simply go to jeffjerina.com/newsletter, and when you're there, subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. I call it the Ignite newsletter, and it's designed to keep you up to date on everything that we're doing here. That way you're not going to miss a single thing. Now there's bonus tips, there's other thoughts, there's other quotes, resources, all these different things, all designed to motivate and inspire you, and it's all in less than a 5-minute read. And so with all that said, the goal of today's podcast is not just motivational. My focus here for you is that in some way it's transformational. So please stick with me to the end here because I have a great story I want to share with you. And it's a story that when I first heard it years ago, it really encouraged and inspired me to stop some of the limiting beliefs that I had and actually make some real change in my life. So hopefully you're going to get something from it as well. Okay, so with that, I want to unpack one of the most quoted lines in personal development. And it's from a gentleman by the name of Napoleon Hill. And it's this book called Think and Grow Rich. Now, if you haven't read the book yet, it's not entirely about making money. That's not really what it's about. It's kind of about the way you think, and really it's a motivational book. It's very uplifting and inspirational. And if you haven't read it yet, I would encourage you to get a copy and read that book. And so here's one of the things that he said. He said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And so I want to break that down here for a second because that statement right there is really 3 parts to it, right? Now, it sounds catchy, but it's not just catchy. If we think about it in terms of the way that we should think, we can look at it like a blueprint. And so part 1 of that statement is this: whatever the mind can conceive. Now, this is about your imagination, what you dream about, what you vision. And if you can picture something in your mind, maybe it's a vision for your business or a relationship, or maybe freedom from debt, or maybe you're starting something out. Maybe it's a new business venture. Maybe it's a new ministry. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. Or maybe you just want to live with more purpose and peace. So if you imagine it, if you dream about it, if you envision it, that's step 1, okay? You have to conceive it. You have to imagine it. Now, you can't just have this cloudy vision or this vision like, man, it's kind of fuzzy. I don't know how that's going to come to fruition. I don't know how that's actually going to look or, how that's going to play out. You have to have a clear and bold vision. But here's the problem. Most people, let's be honest, we don't even get that far, right? Because we're too busy reacting to life instead of designing it or creating it or envisioning the life that we want. And so in a way, we've lost the ability to dream. Now, I want you for a second here, I want you to go back and I want you to think about when you were a kid. You remember when you were a kid, you could just dream? You had this vivid imagination? And you were very creative. I mean, you had some big, big dreams. I remember I had this dream that I was going to play in the Wimbledon tennis tournament. I mean, that was so clear to me. In fact, one night I had this dream. This is crazy. I was dreaming that I was playing in the Wimbledon tennis tournament. I was playing against Boris Becker because at that time when I was in high school, Becker was one of the big-time players, and he was actually winning. He had at that time won 2 Wimbledons in a row. And I dreamt that I played in the Grand Slam final in Wimbledon against Becker. And I remember, it was so vivid. I remember I was like picking up some of the grass and I was smelling it. And this was so crazy because right around that time, my dad was mowing in the front yard where the window from my room was, and it woke me up, and I was smelling the grass. That's how real that dream was to me. And I'm sure you've had some dreams like that as well. But that's how we were as kids. We had this amazing ability to dream, to vision, to think, to imagine. And then somehow along the way, life got in the way. The noise, the busyness, the distractions, all the chores, the to-do list, the activities. All this stuff get in our way. And in a way here, We've let our past struggles and past failures and past difficulties, past dreams that maybe didn't come to fruition, we've had all that define the ceiling of our future, the way that we think now. So let me ask you something. When's the last time you allowed yourself to dream boldly? I'm talking about a big time dream with no limitations. No worry about, hey, I don't have the money for that, I don't have the time for that, whatever. I'm just talking about dreaming boldly and dreaming with God at the center of it. Because if you can't see it, you're never going to pursue it, right? And this is where faith comes in. And I love this verse here. It's Ephesians 3, verse 20. This verse right here is when God tells us that we can do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power at work within us. So yeah, right there. God has given you permission to think and dream big. You can do that right now. Even as an adult, you can dream big right now. And so part 2 here of Napoleon Hill's statement, here's what it says, and believe. Now here's where this whole thing gets really real here. You might conceive the idea, right? But do you actually believe it's possible? You may have this grand vision. You may have this amazing dream, this amazing idea. But yet, do you actually believe it's possible? Because if you don't actually believe it's possible, this right here is where people get stuck. They get this amazing vision, but then the voice of doubt creeps in, right? The imposter syndrome kicks in. We start saying or thinking things like this to ourselves. We say, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I failed before. What if people laugh at me? I've never seen it done before. Ooh, that's a big one right there. I've never seen it done before. So if I've never seen it done before, why do I think this could happen? Why do I think I should even try this? Because shouldn't somebody else tried this already or thought about this? And if they never have, then you know what? This isn't going to work. Or what if I try and nothing comes from it? Now listen, right here, belief. This is the bridge between what you see in your mind and what you experience in real life. Now, if you don't believe it's possible, you're not going to act on it, right? You're going to play it safe. You're not going to go all in. You're going to make excuses. You're going to call it wisdom, but when really what that is that you're thinking is wisdom, it's really just fear in disguise. But belief, this thing right here, belief activates movement. And there's a saying here, I don't know who said it, but the first time I heard it, I thought, wow, that is powerful. And this is what it says. It says, hope breeds action. That is so true, right? Because hope, belief, it does breed action. If you believe, if you have this hope that something good is going to come from your work, from your effort, maybe not right away, but at some point, if you believe that, you have that hope, you're going to stay in the game. You're not going to quit. You're going to keep pushing forward until you see something from it. That hope, that belief breeds action. And it also does this. Belief unlocks boldness, courage, and allows you to start before you even feel you're ready. Because most of the time when we start something big, we have this big dream, but we have this massive faith, this belief, this hope. Yeah, we're going to be starting every single time before we're ready. And so if we think about it that way, it's not about blind optimism, right? It's about rooted confidence. Confidence in your abilities. Confidence that if God gave you this amazing grand vision, He's going to give you what you need to see it through. Okay, so part 3 here of this statement from Napoleon Hill, I'm going to read it here. Then I'm going to read the entire statement again. So we've got context for the whole deal here. Part 3 says this, it can achieve. Now, the whole statement here says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Now, I'm going to speak to you right now. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, your mind can achieve. And this is the payoff here. This right here, this part of that statement is the payoff. This is where we get the victory. This is where we get the results. Because when your mind conceives it and your heart believes it, you're positioned now to achieve it. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? I wished that wasn't the case, but you know, life has taught me that a lot of things, especially big dreams, big ideas and visions, those things are not easy to achieve. Because if they were, everybody would have those big dreams and they would all pursue them. But the reality of it is that that's not true. Most big things and big visions that God gives you are not easy right away. You've got to work at it. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight, but it does mean it's possible. That is the key. It's possible. And here's what I love. Hill didn't say will achieve. He said can achieve. In other words, it's not guaranteed, but it is available. You know, you still have to work. You still have to show up. And you still have to push through setbacks. But I want to say this thing about work here because I know for myself that when I am working towards a goal and I'm putting a lot of energy and effort into it and I get the results, I see the accomplishment, I feel better when I see the results, when I get the victory. And I'm sure you probably do as well, as opposed to maybe something just being given to me. I know I feel better about myself when I'm working. And I'll just, give you a quick example here. Years ago, probably about a couple years, I used to have people mow my yard. And this is actually before I was married. I don't even know why I did this when I was single. It was many, many years ago. And I know it saved me some time, right? Maybe an hour, hour and a half. But I stopped doing it because I was like, wait a second. I kind of enjoyed mowing my yard. I enjoyed getting out of there, getting some sun, getting some exercise. And not just that, when I stopped paying those guys to mow my yard, I said, look, I want to start mowing it again. And I went back to mowing. What I didn't realize I missed was the work part. Was that when I was done mowing the yard, I would look out, and I still do this to this day, look out in the front in the backyard, and I look at it and go, wow, that is the fruit of my labor. I feel better about myself because I'm like, man, I just did that. And I know may sound silly. I know it's simple, but I really do feel like that when I'm actually putting forth towards something. I put that work towards it. I feel better from the results. I feel better about myself. And so again, when the belief is strong here, you're going to get this idea about quitting, about giving up. It's going to be an afterthought. You're going to get that out of your brain because your belief is going to trump it. It's going to be so powerful that the idea of quitting, it's not going to even be a thought that enters your mind. And so think about here a verse, Galatians 6, verse 9. It says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That right there is the spiritual echo, the encore of what Napoleon Hill was saying. Don't give up. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And so I'm going to wrap up this podcast with this. It's that story I was telling you about. And this story here is about the first man to ever run the 4-minute mile. And if you've heard this story before, if you know the story, you know what I'm talking about. To me, it's a powerful story. And this story, when I first heard about it, man, it really inspired me. And so here's the story here. Before 1954, people believed that the human body, they believed that you and I could not run a mile in under 4 minutes, that humans could not do that. Doctors said it was physically impossible. And then experts said that the heart would give out. There's just no way. But then there's this guy by the name of Roger Bannister. He was a British runner. This guy, he did it. He ran the 4-minute mile. He proved all those naysayers wrong. And here's why he did that. Because he didn't believe what they were saying. He didn't believe it was impossible. He didn't believe that his body couldn't do that. He didn't believe that his heart was going to give out. He believed that he could do it. And so he conceived it in his mind, and he believed it. He had the faith, he had the hope that yes, he could do it. And then here's the crazy thing. On May 6th, 1954, he actually did it. He achieved it. He ran the 4-minute mile. Now, this is even crazier here because within 2 months of him doing that, another runner did it. And then within a year of that, other people, multiple people, were breaking that same barrier. Everybody started running this 4-minute mile. Now, obviously here, the limitation was not the body, right? It was the mind. And if that's true for that race, for a mile, how much more do you think that's true for your purpose, for your relationships, for your business, for your calling, for your faith? And so today's fuel point, I want to challenge you here today. I've got 3 things I want to challenge you with. And again, I'm bringing these up in love, but I do want to challenge you today, challenge you in a good way. So the first way I want to challenge you, I just want to ask you this question. What vision have you pushed aside because you thought it was too big? And here's the second thing. What dream have you buried because you didn't think you were qualified? And then lastly, what goal have you delayed because you've been afraid to fail? And I'll say this as we wrap this up here. Remember, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And so start today by conceiving something worth building, believing that it's possible, and then taking that one step toward it. Even if that step is small, it's tiny, it's scary, even if it's messy, because a lot of times it's going to be that way. But remember, when faith and vision collide, talking about your dreams, what you're imagining, those ideas that you have, when those two collide with action, anything is possible. All right, so that wraps up today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today's show. I really do appreciate it. And hey, before you go, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. I really appreciate that. It really helps the podcast grow. And hey, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go to jeffjerina.com/newsletter and subscribe to the free Ignite newsletter. I'll see you on the next episode. God bless.